straight from Boston. It's Founder Thought, the show that has everything from advice, ideas, and inspiration from founders and business owners that made it all happen.
This episode features Andy VandenBerg, co-founder of WeHero, a company partnering with businesses to create volunteer initiatives. We spoke about entrepreneurship, Cheddarwurst, and how companies can deliver positive social impact.
All right, so welcome to Founder Thought. Today we're here with Andy from WeHero. So Andy, welcome. Tell us in a quick sentence a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. My name's Andy, as you guys said, and I am based out in California, and I am one of the co-founders and COO of WeHero, which is a business that provides corporate volunteering services to large and small companies.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about your background. So let's talk first about who you are. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in Wisconsin, actually,
wow.
just north of a city. Yeah, not many people have spent much time in Wisconsin, but for me, it was the best place in the world to grow up. I grew up near Milwaukee, which is a large city, so it had all of the cultural things that a kid could want and really good education, but it was a small town feel. And so it's an entrepreneurial city, heavy industrial city, and so it's really like in most Midwestern cities, there's a lot of entrepreneurs whose families started businesses 100 years ago. And these families still exist. And one of the most important lessons I learned were just how humble all of these people were. And the Midwestern roots are very real and how people act and what they value. And I have this lesson that has been stuck in my brain from Wisconsin is there was a CEO of one of the large brewing companies that is based in Wisconsin, as you guys can guess which one. And I was at a family party, and this CEO did dishes for 2 hours once the party was wrapping up. And I remember thinking CEOs were these gods. He was traveling around the world on private jets. He spent 2 hours on Friday night doing dishes. And so that lesson always instilled in me. And I'm out in California now, which is the land of tech CEOs and entrepreneurs. And I try to retain that Midwestern root.
Yeah.
Amazing. And are you Parker fan? What's called the team?
The Packers.
Packers. Are you Packers fan?
I have to say I am. Otherwise, the state of Wisconsin will come after me.
Okay. And what do you favorite? And I'm gonna be here like there be stereotype. What do you favorite kind of cheese?
I love a sharp cheddar, specifically from the Sargento company.
So now I ask my own question. Okay.
So tell us a little bit about what did you study, or how did you sort of start your professional career?
Yeah, so I went to a small liberal arts school actually in Maine, and I had no idea what I wanted to study. And so the great thing about that was my freshman and sophomore year, I took almost every subject matter you could be interested in, and I somehow was interested in economics. And so I studied economics, and which naturally led me to go work in finance after college. And there's a very clear career path there. So I went to go work at Deutsche Bank after school in a rotational program. So I spent 9 months rotating between different teams, doing a variety of different things across finance. And I ended up on a team that traded FX, so foreign exchange options and currency for large companies and hedge funds. And it was one of the craziest things. I was 21 years old, trading billions of dollars, and it was absolutely out of this world. And that's when I realized numbers aren't that interesting to me in the abstract. I much more enjoy business and what drives those decisions. And that's what really I loved about the job, is understanding, okay, why does a company in Europe need to hedge their currency? What drives that into business? And so it was really interesting from that sense, but I knew pretty quickly that this wasn't going to be the career path for me.
Yeah. So what were your goals, your dreams? So you're in finance, you're learning about business, you're saying, okay, this is no way the direction that I want to go. But what was your goals? Like what were you thinking about doing?
I think primarily for me was learn. Going to a small liberal arts school, you're always just at a disadvantage from folks who studied, really specifically for that. And so I just wanted to learn. And so from Deutsche Bank, I actually went to go work at a family office, which the family had sold a business for about $1.5 billion. And there's a team of 6 people that the family had hired to manage their money. And so 6 people, and you could do whatever you wanted. And so for me, I kind of thought this would be the most amazing fire hose. I could go learn from smart people and I could learn about every different thing within investing, from venture-backed companies to more stable private equity kind of investing to we were investing in life insurance policies from people who were about to die. And
Oh,
so
wow.
the fire hose that I wanted to be learning from, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so for me, I was like, okay, how can I just learn as much as possible and
Yeah.
take it from there? And once you learn, you start to understand what you like and what you don't like. And I think that's what
Yeah.
was most valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, how you jump, Andy, from the family business where you at right now? Because I saw some stuff I heard about you, I heard about your partner, but how you jump from there to here?
It's a great question. Life is never works in the way that you think it's going to be. So my
Absolutely.
my wife got a job out in California in San Francisco, and we were really excited to move out to San Francisco. It's an incredible city, but I needed to find a job. This was
Yep.
before the time where remote work was possible, and so I joined an investment firm out here that only invested in businesses with profits between about $2.5 and $10 million. And so the same thing, investing, helping these businesses improve. And on the side, I realized, I'm so lucky. Why don't I find a way to give back? And so I started being really interested in nonprofits and how we can help nonprofits. And pretty quickly, I realized, it's great if I can write $1,000 check every year to a nonprofit, but why don't I try to help a little bit more? And so I actually started planning these immersive kind of fundraising events in San Francisco. And
Yep.
so one of the ones I held was what we would know as like a dark dinner. And this was an event that I would just sponsor myself. I'd pay the couple $1,000s to host it. And I would invite people and have them buy a ticket. So what you would think of as a typical fundraising dinner, but I would try to make it really immersive. And so there's an incredible nonprofit called the Sankara Eye Foundation, which is based in India. And, in the United States, if we have glaucoma or cataracts, we can go quickly get a surgery and have it be fixed. It's covered by health insurance. The government will pay for it. In India, there are millions of people who have cataracts who are fully blind, who just can't afford the surgery.
Oh, wow.
And so I think it's about 10 million people every year who become blind for a curable reason.
Yeah.
And so $15 pays for a surgery to
Oh,
cure
wow.
someone's blindness.
Wow.
And so what I did is I brought in the nonprofit to speak, and we had everyone pay $150 for a ticket. And so we did a completely dark dinner. We were in a restaurant, all the lights were off.
Yeah.
And we served a 5-course meal. You had to taste it, what it was. And at the end of the dinner, the lights came on, and in front of all of the attendees were 10 pictures of individuals that you had paid for their surgery before and after. So you could see the change in their face of, I'm blind, I can't see, to I'm cured thanks to the money that you donated.
Yeah.
And so it's really immersive things like that. And the great part is once people saw that, a lot of them donated way more because it was such a powerful experience.
Yeah.
And so I was doing things like that. One, because I like creating, I like building things. And I started to realize that. But two, I wanted to find a way to give back. And at one of those dinners, I actually met my business partner. And he said, hey, this has been such an incredible experience. I am thinking about starting a business related to this. Can we grab coffee?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how the meeting happened. And his idea was to take what we had been doing, what I'd been doing for individuals, and bring that to companies and bring that to the large Fortune 500 companies to help their employees give back.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
it's so this way you met David from those, like the event you're doing, yes?
Yeah, that's how I met Ben. He had been
Ben, I'm
connected to me
sorry.
through
Yeah, he's Ben or David. I'm sorry, I'm confused. Ben or David? He's Ben. Yes.
It's Ben.
I'm
Correct.
sorry, probably I said something else. So this way you met Ben. Now, is Ben background is the same idea? Like, is Ben different background or is the same background?
Different background. So he was working as a consultant in the product space. So he's more of a product manager.
Yes.
But he had more of pure entrepreneurial training. I did not have, the startup training. I had more of the professionalized business background. And so that was a really good blend of skills because I was lacking those skills big time.
So now you met guys and you said, okay, let's start this business. WeHero. Now, how you came up, guys, with the idea? I'm curious about the name, how you came up with the name, the idea. And so let's start with how we came up with the name and the idea.
Yeah, so I'll start with the name. The first name was actually Hero Inc.
Okay.
So our vision was everyone can be a hero. So that's our company's mission. That's let people be a hero. And of course, like most startup people, what's the first thing you do before you have a customer? You buy gear, you buy a t-shirt. And
Sure.
so my partner's wife was actually wearing the Hero Inc. shirt out, and she has a ponytail that covered the last letter, a C. And so she ended up, it looked like she had the name heroin on her t-shirt because the C was covered. And we quickly realized that is not a good name. We should rebrand it. And so we changed it to WeHero because we believe everyone can be a hero
Yeah.
in their daily life. And so the business really started by us talking to these companies in the Bay Area. What we wanted to build a software business. We wanted to build a business that helped companies track their giving, track their volunteering, and encourage more of that at their company. What we quickly realized is we were about 10 years too late. So every conversation we had, there's 5 incredible companies that already do that. And so we took a step back, and Ben, being really thoughtful about a product, what was the main issue these companies were facing? And it was all about how do you actually do the work? There's plenty of software to track it, but if you have a company of 10 to 15,000 people, how do you actually get your employees to volunteer? How do you plan all of those events around the world? And that was the pain point that almost every company had that was spoken to. And so that's what really gave us the idea of how can we actually make this happen for companies? How can we build these volunteer events that engage everyone at massive companies?
So
Amazing.
now here we came up with the idea, because I'm gonna talk about level, because your background, you said the professional background, like, and David entrepreneur background. So how you become
Ben.
like Ben? I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep calling him David. That's it. We change
You
his
can
name
call
for
him David.
That's it. I'm calling his name David now. David. That's it. So Ben and you, because your background, the professional background, David entrepreneur. Now, what you learn from Ben in this time, because I feel some people come on, because we see this is in our business. We see it because we know a lot of entrepreneur. We are entrepreneur by our. We see people coming from a structured place to work with an entrepreneurial environment. They face a lot of challenges. They say, okay, that's not what I expect. I think entrepreneur name, a lot of people love it because it sounds like, oh, I'm entrepreneur. But really, when you get in, it's like it's crazy stuff. So if you can explain for us what you face, what you learn from Ben, and what was the change.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's, something I've learned over the last 3-4 years is so much from that. I think the biggest learning is speed to execution. If I think back to my previous career, let's say we wanted to enter a new market, we would run a consulting study for 3 months, we would gather data, and then we would invest heavily behind it. Whereas we don't have that capital, we don't have that time, and that's actually our advantage when we got started. And so, if we had an idea, I would want to build a 10-page plan about that idea, how we're going to execute it. And Ben said, let's just spend 3 hours tonight, figure it out together. We'll be on Zoom and let's crank it out. And so the speed to market was the biggest learning. I think the other thing, having worked in traditional settings, that is typically done is perfection is the only acceptable outcome. So I would submit my version to my boss, who would edit it and then submit it to another person. And there's really no ownership in that. And you need perfection before you take it to market. Whereas, when you're starting a business, nothing's perfect. And so if you can get it to 90% there in 1/10 of the time, that's worthwhile doing. And so I think that is probably the 2 key learnings from Ben that I was able to get in those kind of initial years.
So now, when you start your business, you start WeHero, guys. How you enter the market? You start knocking the door. You calling people. How? Because I feel a lot of people, they build a business or they have a great idea, they don't know how to take it to the market. I think there's a lot of stuff. A lot of people have an amazing idea, but we have an idea. What we do? So when you came up with the idea, I said, okay, we need to put. Obviously, you put the plan, you put the action. We said our next 5 steps. Those are our next 5 action. Guys, did you put short-term goal, long-term goal? What was the goal from you guys?
Yeah, I think we didn't set aggressive goals when we got started. I think our initial goal was, what is the product here that actually works? What is the product that works for these companies? What solves their problems? And then how do we make a business out of that? And so the first goal was, we were very lucky being in the Bay Area and having contacts at large tech companies.
Yeah.
We went to these companies and said, all right, you said you had a pain point around volunteering. We think we can do something there. And so the first thing I'll say is a lot of luck is involved in this. But our original goal was, okay, LinkedIn wants to do something with us. Let's make it happen. Even if we lose money, whatever it is, let's learn from them. And then we were able to, do 5 to 10 different kind of customer experiences that were really customized to start. And there we learned, okay, this is what a product could be. This is how much companies are willing to pay for it. And then from there, you can really leverage your experience and having positive reviews to get a lot of customer introductions. And I think, oftentimes entrepreneurs in general try to scale so quickly. We took the opposite approach. Let's do things that don't scale. Let's not try to make $1 million in our first 2 months. Let's find out what people actually want and then find a way to execute against that. And then if we can do that successfully, we should scale later in the process.
Amazing.
So the first 6 months, what you discover about yourself, and what you discover about, like, okay, you know what, I did not know about myself in the first 6 months as an entrepreneur, because I think this was a challenge. So the first 6 months, what do you discover about yourself?
The most important learning was, that I love creating businesses. I knew I had always, enjoyed investing in businesses and improving businesses, but something inside me gets really excited when you take something from zero and build it. And so for me, that was a very reassuring feeling and gave me a lot of confidence in the decisions to chase this. That's one, and that's a very selfish learning. But I think it's important to love what you do. I think that the second key learning for me was that you can build a great business that also does great things for the world. And, having left a profit-driven industry where, we really only cared about profit in everything I've ever done, to a business now that, is very much focused on profit, but it's also focused on doing amazing things for the world and our environment and the people in this world. And so for me, I never thought that was possible. I thought you make a lot of money and then you donate that money.
Yeah.
But I think now there's this understanding, and we've been able to build and help other companies build businesses that kind of focus on profit and purpose and the power of that. And so I think that's been the second main learning for me, in just the excitement that can come from that and the ability to do that.
Amazing. And can you tell us something? Tell us one of your most memorable moments during this whole process. Could be a success. It could be a failure. It could be just something that's just really stands out that occurred that, it's always going to stick with you.
Yeah, we actually have a wall of shame at our company. So
Amazing.
A wall that highlights all of our failures.
Yeah.
Because we think you need to fail to become successful. So I think a moment that stood out to me, to be really memorable. I think for me, we didn't have an office when we started, and so we were operating out of our apartments. And one of the most amazing things was we kept getting more and more amazing tech clients, and with that, they want to meet, and where do you send an invoice? Where do you do all of this stuff? And we had always listed our apartment addresses as kind of our office headquarters. And eventually we were working with a tech company who the key contact lived about a block away from me in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
And was like, hey, I recognize this address. Is there an office building there? I said, oh, no, it's actually my apartment. But I remember thinking how funny is we were serving 1,000 clients or 1,000 individuals at one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
And it was from my tiny 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco with my wife and I. And so that was a very funny moment, I think, in recognizing if you have a great product, not much else matters.
Yeah.
So now, because I think Andy talked a few times about you finding out the product. Can you tell us what the process you did, guys, to find out the product? Like, because I feel a lot of people have the idea, but sometimes even a challenge, like which one because from our experience, probably it's the same idea with you. Is the product could be going different way in different directions, especially a service or product. You could have it in multiple ways. So, what the way, guys, you came up with the product and the direction you did?
Yeah, we do 100% of our product development when we're starting something new based on pain point discovery.
Mm.
And so if you have a good relationship with someone, be like, what are you trying to do and what can you not do?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll use the LinkedIn example. We would go to LinkedIn and talk to their HR team or talk to their corporate social responsibility team. It's like, what are you trying to do? And they're like, well, we have 300 interns this summer. We really want to show them that LinkedIn prioritizes giving back, but no nonprofits are calling us back.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to all spend a day out volunteering. We want to all donate on behalf of them, but no nonprofits will get back to us, and it's 2 months away.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took that and we were like, okay, the biggest pain point is needing to do this for their employee happiness and recruiting techniques,
Mm-hmm.
but no one is helping them. And we kind of discovered by talking to some nonprofits that they just don't have the resources or bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we're like, okay, there's a clear pain point on both sides. The nonprofit wants money and volunteers from LinkedIn. They just don't have the ability to facilitate it. And so what we did is we went to LinkedIn and said, hey, we'll build this 400 person, 300 person event for you guys on that day in the summer. And we'll be the facilitator and kind of bring together those different parts. And so by just listening to LinkedIn and what they wanted to do and what wasn't working, we came up with a customized product for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that product, we ended up taking these individuals to Lake Tahoe to kayak around the lake and pinpoint where algae blooms were happening, because they try to get rid of all the invasive algae blooms.
Sure.
And so it's a really creative way to give back in something that's really fun, right? You're going to a lake and kayaking with your colleagues.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is, we started doing this, trying to find the pain points for 5 or 6 companies. And we quickly realized they're all the same. So then how do we build standardized products on top of that once you kind of discover, the individual pain that they're all suffering from?
Amazing. And what kind of companies do you typically work with? Like who's on the receiving end? Who's the nonprofit type companies that are getting this work done for them? And how do you choose them?
Yeah, so we now have about 30 standard volunteer experiences that can be done in any format that you want. And we have built these programs alongside the nonprofit, right? Because we love giving back, but we're not an expert on clean water in Africa. And so if there's a cause area that we want to give back to or a company wants to give back to, we will vet 10 to 20 nonprofits to understand with our efforts which one is going to have the highest impact. And we're really lucky that we operate at a scale now where nonprofits want to work with us because they know we're going to bring them a lot of corporate clients and corporate donations. And so we have a whole team that plans and builds these and really vets the nonprofits to make sure they're the right people to work with.
So now, Andy, when I looked at your website and I looked at WeHero, you talk about large event. What this large event? Is this what you did, guys, for LinkedIn, like the seminar? There was a large event seminar, or because this sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so our business now is a few different things. I would say pre-COVID, when the world was all in person, we were doing really customized things like what I described for LinkedIn for companies around the country. And right before COVID, maybe 3 to 4 months, we realized, hey, we can't keep flying around the country doing all of these custom events. So how do we actually scale? And so we opened a warehouse and we started shipping, volunteer events to different offices around the country. And so LinkedIn would have an office in San Francisco and Seattle. So if we were doing an event with people in San Francisco, we would ship things to Seattle and we'd be able to do the event over video conferencing.
Oh, wow.
So the team in the Seattle office could do it and the team in San Francisco office. And luckily, when COVID hit, we already had a warehouse. And so instead of shipping large boxes to offices, we started shipping small boxes to individual homes. And so, if we were putting together water filters to be delivered across the, different parts of Africa and Indonesia where they struggle with clean water, we would send one filter to each individual house and they would have to construct it during live events. And so post-COVID, we now do a variety of all the things. We fly around to do custom events like that for really large clients. And then we also do hybrid and fully remote events. So if your team has 300 people around the world, we can send things to every team member and come together and volunteer for an hour with a really educational keynote. And so it's really immersive, but it can be done anywhere. And so we kind of do a variety of all those three different things for companies now.
Oh wow! And guys, David, Andy, now you guys are growing, obviously. You're growing. You have
Yeah, we've been.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, we've been very lucky. I think being able to serve in a variety of ways has helped companies keep working with us, and we've continued growing at 2 to 3 times a year since we started every year.
Amazing. So I do have a question. I think we do have a question about WeHero, but what Carbon Hero? Because I saw something about Carbon Hero, and I think you have another business you and Ben developed together. But what Carbon Hero?
Yeah. So I think Ben and I took a step back and what do we want to do? We want to keep making more companies that help people do good.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started, maybe about 2 years ago, we quickly realized we ship things around the country all the time, and that's really bad for the environment. The plane trips and the shipping, and we wanted to find a way okay, how do we fix that?
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of changes we made to become more sustainable internally, but part of that is also offsetting our carbon. We need to ship things around the country, and so how do we offset the impact of that? Well, we quickly realized while we were trying to figure this out is the only companies that do this are massive consulting companies who charge millions of dollars a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great if you're a Procter & Gamble or a massive company who can afford them. But there's a lot of small companies who want to do good for the environment as well, and they want to become more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went through the whole process of trying to make ourselves more sustainable, using consultants and using different people. And so we said, why don't we bring those people all together and help other small companies? And we basically only work with small companies here, typically under 100 or 200 employees. And we handhold them through the entire process of becoming more sustainable, whatever their product is, and then offsetting the remaining parts of their carbon footprints in projects that match their mission. Mm-hmm. I can give you an example if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Because actually, before you give me an example, is people really care about this? Because we care, but I hear a lot of people I see a lot of people they don't care. Let's more gas, let's do more stuff. Really, people care. Is this big issue? Because what I see is different from what I feel.
It's a great question. I think all data shows that companies who have better social missions and more sustainable practices attract better employees, as well as attract more millennial customers. Mm-hmm. And so when we hear the millennial customers, you obviously understand that they care more about this, but that segment of the market is growing faster. Mm-hmm. And so unless you only serve the baby boomers, you need to be focusing on that because that is the future.
Sure. So if you can give us the example about the Carbon Hero.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 quick examples. The first is there's a company that manages zoos around the country. Mm-hmm. And so they're the outsourced management company for about 5 to 10 different zoos. And they have a bunch of corporate travel. And so they wanted to offset that. And so what we were able to do is we calculated all of that using our team of what are their emissions, how do you offset that? But we actually were able to find projects that specifically related to animals. Mm-hmm. And so they protected a portion of the jungle from being cut down that had all of these diverse species in it. Mm-hmm. And so it was amazing to find things like that, as well as we helped protect bison grazing land. Mm-hmm. And so these are projects that help our environment, but they also help animals and plants, which directly relate to the zoo's mission. Yeah. And so we're trying to find ways to really help companies market this because it's a huge marketing potential as well.
Oh, yeah, wow. Amazing.
Okay, so now, Andy, let's talk about, go back for what guys when you develop WeHero. What the biggest challenges guys they faced in the beginning?
I think we're 100% bootstrap business. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we have relied 100% on client financing. Mm-hmm. And so whereas most companies, if you take a lot of money, you don't need to hustle quite as hard. And I would say the first year or 2 was constant hustle. Mm-hmm. And so that was the biggest challenge. It would have been a lot easier to go raise a few $1 million, hire a huge team, and grow that way. Whereas we focused a lot more on hiring as we grew and really relying on having great customer relationships to help us grow.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And what are some things you have learned trial by fire style? You make mistake, you learn it. We have to try this to make it. Because I think in the beginning, you said something about 90% Perfect. I think actually sometimes what I think this really I like what you said here because I think sometimes the perfection kill the success of it because
Or
if you
just
wait
kills the
on
progress in general.
because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel people they want to be a perfection and they wait somebody else come with the idea develop it and they already moving ahead with it. So tell us what you learned from trial by fire.
Yeah, I mean, a story that comes up is we started testing out some email marketing, initially and trying to get new clients that way, and we weren't as careful with the type of people we were reaching out to, and we accidentally reached out to, I did, so it's 100% my fault. We reached out to someone that also ran a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And this person got very offended by the fact we were offering volunteering and charging for it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a common in the market. And she wrote a little bit of an angry blog post about
Oh
our
wow.
company. And this was maybe like 9 months in. And it was, what I thought would be a total business killer.
Yeah.
I had no idea this person's following. And it was great to have a partner there that said, hey, don't worry about this. Like, our companies that work with us love us. Who cares what this random person on the internet says?
Yeah.
And so I think that was one of those things that's like, oh, we should have been more careful, but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. Amazing.
So now your partnership with Ben. I said his name right this time. I got
Not
his
David,
name. So your partnership with Ben, because I like me and Stephen, we partner and we have we have multiple business together. It's a lot of challenges there because I'm like stubborn sometimes. I'm like fast moving. So how guys you come up with the idea between you and you like how you find the sweet spot between you and Ben?
Yeah, like the balance.
The first thing I'd say is just trust.
Mm-hmm.
You need to really trust the person, and you need to have long-term alignment in what you're doing. If you have different long-term goals, then that's going to make things challenging, even if you get along really well. Yeah. And so I think you need to have that discussion early about what are the long-term goals, how are we all going to play our part, and I think it's great to have different skill sets. Mm-hmm. Ben and I have complete different skill sets, and so we stay in our lanes very well, and we have our own strengths. Mm-hmm. We also have our own weaknesses and are very transparent about that. And so it's good to have someone to back you up in different ways. But I think it's the long-term alignment that really makes a strong partnership.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial lifestyle. So what sort of drives you? Because that's one of the things that we see is often an issue with entrepreneurs in general is when somebody starts to, get into this lifestyle and to become an entrepreneur, they don't realize that there's a lot that you have to do internally to drive yourself, to continue to build and grow and just invest your time. So what is it that what is it that drives you? What is it that helps you kind of get out of bed every morning and really continues to go?
Tell us about the Wisconsin hustle. This is what she's asking.
It sounds like a dance.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And it relates directly to like entrepreneurial burnout, which I see so much out in the Bay Area. For me, I spent my first 8-9 years, I would say working a lot of hours and thinking that would lead me to success, working in companies and, having financial success, but not necessarily, happiness. And my dad actually passed away when I was a sophomore in high school. And he was the exact same thing. He worked so hard. He was always at the office, missed a ton of things because he wanted to provide for my family and really glad he was able to do that. But I think about my life and, if I were to die early, would I want my life being spent in the office working for someone else? And so for me, I don't have aims to become a billionaire through being an entrepreneur. I do this to control my lifestyle. Ultimately I love building things. But if I'm building things from 8 a.m. till midnight every day and don't have a balance, I think, that's not what I'm looking for. And so for me, I'm driven every day to build a life where I can spend time with my family and do things that I really enjoy. And so for me, that is what I find to be the most important kind of underlying long-term driver in why I do this.
Amazing.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask one more question about WeHero before we jump first. Guys, when you launched, did you have any competitor?
We had a few existing competitors. There were 2 to 3 in different cities around the country, but no major competitors. that kind of operated the market. And so it was a really good time for, a business like ours to start because the market was growing really fast and there were no incumbents. And so it was kind of a fight to be the brand that everyone wanted to work with.
Okay, and is that so? Just to talk about the competitor, is the rest of the competitor growing as fast as you're growing, guys? Or guys, you now like you are the people for this in the market, or you hope to be?
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix in the market. There's 3 or 4 people who do similar stuff to us. There's one who I would say is a direct competitor, who has been a legacy player. They've been around for 15 to 20 years. And I would say have remained relatively flat over the 15 and 20 years. They have a great client base. It's 5-10 people. The 2 founders probably make a great living, but they're not aggressively growing. And then there's 1 to 2 software players who do this. And so instead of doing hands-on volunteering where you get something delivered to your house or you go to you go to your company office or you go to Lake Tahoe, they do everything virtually. And these companies popped up in COVID because people wanted to volunteer virtually during COVID. And so those companies grew really fast, at the start of COVID, but have somewhat flatlined given the fact that people are Zoom fatigued at this point. And so, but overall, the market is growing really fast and there's space for a lot of people at this point, given more and more companies are prioritized.
So one more question about WeHero. Now, one thing we need to know, like we cover a lot of stuff about WeHero, but one thing you think we should know about WeHero, what do you think we should know?
Yeah, so the one thing I would think you need to learn, if WeHero close tomorrow, what would be valuable is that all businesses are better when they deliver social impact. And getting leaders to really understand the ROI of that. If companies think about doing a $50,000 volunteer experience, that seems expensive, but it's actually really cheap, right? You get an employee happiness, you get a lot lower turnover from employees, as well as what that does to your brand when you can market that. And so those 3 things, not to mention the amount of impact you deliver and help the world. And all of those things are so powerful. And so the more companies that can understand that, I think the better the world is going to be and the better the business world is going to be as well.
I do have one more question about WeHero. I know probably we need one more question because actually it's very interesting concept because you do have the event and this stuff, but also I saw something about hiring or placement people in the right jobs. Is this a huge part of what you do, guys?
Yeah, so it's another business that Ben and I started mainly because people were reaching out to us and saying, hey, I'm recently graduating college or I worked at a big company for the last 10 years and I want to transition to building a career around kind of social responsibility. And like, do you know where's hiring? Do you know where to find jobs? And ultimately, we don't hire that often. We don't need that many people to keep growing, thankfully. And so we didn't really know where to send them. And we quickly realized, okay, we have thousands of people who want these kinds of jobs, as well as this is one of the biggest areas for companies to hire in the future. And so we created a website really just to facilitate that. It's called the Impact Job. And it's really a place where people, recent graduates or, later in their career can find opportunities in sustainability and social impact. And so we actually just launched this about 45 days ago, and we've got thousands of people on this website that want to hear about new jobs being launched.
Amazing.
So it's not really a primary business for us. It's more just a place to allow meeting of companies and talent.
That's great though. It's a good resource.
Now, Andy, do you have a mentor?
My brother is my mentor. He is one of the smartest people I know, and he thinks very differently than me. So as I like to run ideas by him, I often get the exact opposite of what I'm thinking in my head, and I think that's really helpful. I don't need to agree with him, but I need to understand all the different sides, as well as he's just one of the smartest people I know and hardest worker, and so it's good to have him to look up to and understand.
And so because this is what I will actually, a lot of people sometimes come ask me like, okay, how to become, because a lot of people want to become business owner, entrepreneur, and founder, but I don't think everybody understand how much a challenge, how much it's a challenge, even if you don't work, because the lot comes with it. So what advice you will give people if they thinking to jump on this? They thinking want to open the business? Because I think anybody can do it, but you're willing to have to set up your mindsets to do it.
I think it's about understanding what your strengths are. if I think about myself as an entrepreneur, without Ben, I probably wouldn't have had that early product development strength. And so what would have been right for me is to go out there and buy a business, buy a small business and become an entrepreneur that way. That business already had product market fit. I could have grown that way. If you're really creative and know how to build products, then you should start your own business. And so what I always try to tell people is there's no need to start something unique. There are so many amazing companies out there and they need competitors. And so find something you're really good at and a strength that you have and try to focus on that.
This is actually good.
That's great.
Good advice. Actually, yeah, great advice. Okay. Do you want to jump into the rabbit question and we'll come back for more question?
Yeah, I think we can wrap up with some questions at the end if there's anything else.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I still have a few questions, but
Okay, I'm nervous now.
Prepare yourself.
I'm nervous for the rapid
no,
question.
I think
They're
they're
fun.
very easy. It's very fun, actually.
It's
That's
not
it.
like trivia. All right. So, what's your favorite food?
Cheddarwurst.
What the heck is a
It's
Cheddarwurst?
a bratwurst. It's a bratwurst stuffed with cheese. I'm saying that for the Wisconsin connection.
Okay, we'll skip past that one.
It's what this? I never heard this. What this? Is this food like available everywhere? It's just only Wisconsin.
Yep.
I never heard this.
Nope, it's available everywhere. You can go to your local grocery and it'll be called a Better Cheddar. It's made by Johnsonville.
Oh, okay. So okay, now I have to try this now.
All right. Do you have a favorite movie?
I have never laughed as hard as when I watch Austin Powers. So I would say the Austin Powers series.
Okay, great.
No, you see, I never thought Andy will be the person watch Aston Power, but now something we learn new something. Okay.
Do you have a favorite kind of music?
Yes, I like reggae and country music.
Wow.
Cool. That's
It's
amazing.
two different ends of the spectrum. Interesting. Are you a tea or a coffee person?
Exclusively tea.
Tea.
What do you favorite kind of tea? Green tea.
Jasmine green.
Okay. Cool.
Great. Are you a day or a night person?
I'm a morning person. Best work done between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Amazing.
Amazing. Do you have a favorite book?
It's a book called The Life You Can Save. It was transformational in my thinking. It's a book that talks about how every individual in the developed world can change an individual very easily. They can change the world. It shares a lot of examples. It's by Peter Singer, and it shares examples of, if you go to your Starbucks coffee and you buy a $6 coffee, you could, instead of buying that coffee, make a coffee at home and donate those $5, and you will likely provide school fees for a girl in Africa for six months.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it gives a bunch of examples like that about how an individual can change lives.
What's the name of it one more time?
One more time.
The Life You Can Save by Peter Singer.
Excellent.
Okay,
Gonna check that out. All right. Tell us one person who inspires you.
A guy named Felix Baldoff-Lenshin. He is building an AI machine learning company to identify and predict tumor growths in lung cancer.
wow.
He is dreaming very big, and he is solving a problem that the entire world needs.
Wow.
Based in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, wow.
And how you know him?
He is someone I know from college.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Amazing. So what do you think about setting goals?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in goals. I set goals two ways. One being, 5 and 10-year goals.
Yeah.
And then we set annual company goals. But for me personally, what I do is I only focus on the outcome because I don't really care how I get there. Ultimately, I want the outcome to happen. And so I set quarterly goals for myself, typically 6 categories, and I review them every single Friday afternoon.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And so once a week, I see, did I make progress on these 6 things? And then I set, what do I need to do next week? What's the most important thing to do next week? And so I review those every week. And then at the end of the quarter, I look at my progress and I set the goals for the next quarter. And this is goals for my business as well as my personal life.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, wow. So the 6 goals are part of both, or are they 6 goals here, 6 goals here? Just 6 goals in general.
Both.
You cap it at 6 goals, you're saying. Okay.
It's 6 categories. So I have
6
WeHero
categories.
as a category. I have my personal life and health. I have other things. And so it kind of incorporates everything. So it's 6 categories and there's goals under each category.
Amazing.
But I want to be able to review them in less than 15 minutes every Friday.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's great. Are you a dog or a cat person?
I'm a cat person.
Cat person. Why? Or do you know the answer to that?
I got a cat for my 16th birthday, which everyone always laughs at, but I think it's the ease of care.
Yeah.
I think I would love to have a dog later in life, but right now a cat would be a lot easier to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a cat called Boston. Actually, this was the craziest cat I ever have in my life.
He was a cat from hell.
Really, was a nightmare cat. Anyway.
All right, what's your biggest fear?
Heights.
Heights. Yeah, I can concur with that.
And probably, more serious fear is not doing anything with my life. Not doing something exciting that, when I look back when I'm 75, that didn't try to do cool things.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 more quick questions. So, what do you miss most about being a kid?
The constant excitement of discovering new things.
Yeah. And the final question is one word that describes you.
We should get my wife on this. She would have a better answer, probably. I'm going to use a hyphen in my word. I'd say quiet consistency. I'm not a very talkative person. I'm much more of an introvert, but it's just consistency of action that I think is typically what I think of myself.
Amazing.
Amazing.
All right, great. So now we're on to the next segment. So complete the sentence. And there's not as many of these as there are questions. So when I started my business, I wish I knew blank.
How to dream bigger.
Oh, cool.
Leadership for me is about what?
Leading by example.
Okay. The one thing that makes a great team member is?
Solutions minded.
Challenges in life or business are what?
Temporary.
That's a good one. In 5 years, my business will be?
Helping 1 million people a year.
Amazing. The person with the most influence on me is?
Probably my wife.
Great.
Good answer. Safe answer. So,
I want my legacy to be?
Focused around family.
Great. The best advice I would give someone is?
You build your own destiny every single day.
Amazing. And if given the opportunity to do differently, I would do what?
Experiment more.
Okay, great.
okay. So we finished this question.
We're
Now
done with the questions.
I do have a question for you, Andy, because we hope this was fun, as fun for us. But anyway, let's jump back. I do have a question. Do you have a favorite quote?
Favorite quote?
A favorite quote. I have it's a very long quote. It's a quote by George Washington right before he died. And the quote is about, for all the mistakes that I've made in my life, I don't want people to, I want people to understand that my actions always had the best intentions. It's a much longer quote. I can't remember it word for word, but I think it's a powerful statement in that, you want to be remembered for your goals of what you were trying to do, not what you actually did.
Amazing.
So, okay. What we have else for?
So then just to quickly wrap up. So what does the future look like for you personally and for the business?
I think the business will continue growing and continue helping more and more companies. And we're trying to find ways to, we work with Fortune 1000 companies. We're trying to find more ways to work with mid-sized and small companies as well. Just to kind of keep expanding the types of companies that we can support. We are heavily investing behind the psychology of volunteering. And so, if you do a volunteer event, you do great good in an hour or two, but how do we change the nature of someone's mind? And so they want to volunteer and give back more. And so how do we alter people's mental states so they become more empathetic So they want to do more and more of this. And that's ultimately our goal, is to turn a single volunteer into someone who's passionate about giving back. And so investing a lot behind that over the next
So
couple
actually,
years.
I do have a question for you, Andy, because you talk about volunteer. I'm thinking about our company, like small company, 10 people, whatever the size. Company like us, how we can talking about but how we can volunteer, like what bigger companies they do, or companies they can invest, like how you can do it in, smaller budget. It's a lot of stuff. It has.
Yep. Yeah, so the typical example we use is small companies traditionally volunteer, once a year around Thanksgiving. And so we encourage all small companies to try to, if they have nonprofit relationships, call them and say, hey, could we come volunteer for a day? Could we go work at the local Boston Soup Kitchen, or, volunteer, after school to help students tutor them? We think that's amazing, and that's the most budget-friendly option. Once you have more than like 15 people, it's really hard to do that because a nonprofit won't have capacity. They'll say, we cannot have more than 15 people come in. And so that's when we come in and we start building more customized events. And what I would tell people is, you want to give your employees as many opportunities to volunteer. And so with every company, let's say you're a marketing agency, what are your employees really good at? They're good at creating copy. They're good at working with companies on brand positioning. Then you should allow them to give those skills back to local nonprofits. And so we help find ways for, hey, your employee could donate 3 hours a month to help a local nonprofit build better branding or adjust their copy on their website, things of that nature. And so you kind of slowly do that. Some companies just say, hey, we don't want to do any planning and coordination. Just plan an event for us and we'll ship it to your office and you guys will have fun doing it. And so that's another way we help a lot of small companies. But we really value on aligning things to a company mission.
So what impact do you want to have on the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's helping the 1 million people in the next few years through our events and the type of impact we can have. Amazing.
And if someone is looking to learn more or to get in touch, where can they find you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to us on our website, WeHero.co. I'm on Twitter, and so feel free to message me on Twitter if you're trying to get in contact with me directly.
Amazing. Any other questions, Oz? I think we're done.
Oh, I think we're done.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was great.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Founder Thought. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at founderthought.com. Founder Thought is a production of Pepper Gang.